That is the undefeated teams in the Big Ten. There are 4 of them left, as I mentioned a moment ago. Just for a little perspective, we'll show you how that number stacks up with recent seasons. There were 5 last year entering October: Maryland, Michigan, Michigan State, Penn State, and Iowa. The fewest the Big Ten has had in this recent stretch, as you see here, is 2018. Only Ohio State got through the month of September unscathed that year. I thought we would go through each one of the teams, Howard, and assess their biggest strengths. And then if there are still questions remaining for each one, I, again, have played kind of varying levels of schedules to this point. So, maybe you feel like there are still a few unanswered questions, but the strengths, I think, shine through for all 4 of these teams. Let's start with Ohio State.
Well, I mean, you look at the strength of this team. To me, it's really the offense and the different things that they're able to do, the way they're able to win games. They've proven that they can run the ball, be very effective doing that. They've also shown you that when they want to take the top off of defenses, they can do that with that outstanding wide receiver group. And then I go back to last week. One of the things that really impressed me was how they started to integrate the fullback position and also the tight end. Yes, I said the fullback position. They actually have one of those on the roster. So I think it's really impressive what they're doing. And they've had to win games differently. So one of the things that I've been saying is teams are going to have a tough time preparing for them moving forward because they have so many weapons. And they've shown you the things that they can get done offensively on the field. So it's been good.
Now, it's a fabulous offense. It was a fabulous offense a year ago. I do feel like after the Notre Dame game, we maybe wondered just a little bit about them offensively, but clearly they answered those questions here over the last few games. Is there anything that you look at and say, I still don't know about these guys?
I think defensively they've made the adjustments they needed to. I think one of the things when you think about a dominant team, you think about those dominant pass rushers that can come off the edge and really affect the game. And we haven't necessarily seen that. They've got guys that can make plays, but is there one guy where the offense is going to say, we need to turn the protection to the right and we need to turn it to the left? And that's not a negative. I think you may be able to have so many players be able to step up and get pressure on the quarterback that you just don't have that number 1 or number 2 guy that can just consistently get to the quarterback. But they don't have to.
Yeah.
They do such a fabulous job of getting off the field in third and long situations that they make it easy for themselves. And, they've been critical. We've been critical about them giving up some big plays.
I was going to ask you about that. I mean, that's the one thing, right? They've given up 4 plays of 50 yards or longer. I realize, the Braylon Allen play, for instance, last week. Okay, that was not against the first-string defense. The game was over. But I do think that when we were there, kind of you and Jerry and Joshua expressed this concern that maybe there was some high risk, high reward to the defense. And so we have seen a little bit of the high risk part of it. Is that just part and parcel comes along with it, or are we blowing that out of proportion, or is that?
I'm starting to feel like we were probably blowing it out of proportion.
Okay.
I think I've seen some plays where maybe a defensive player has been out of position, right? So I don't know if that's necessarily the scheme. That could be the defensive player getting out of position. You can talk about some big plays, particularly as a pass play. Quarterback is scrambling.
Yeah,
you're going to have some plays like that. No, you can't ask the corners and safeties to stay with these guys the entire time. So you're going to see some of those plays made. But they have proven to me that they can make the plays when they need to make them. This is an outstanding defense to me, and they're continuing to get better. But we have to say something, right? There has to be a negative that we need to focus on.
Well, but I would also say, and we've been saying the same thing for 16 years now, you and Jerry and I, that they judge themselves as being national championship level. And so when you assess them, you assess them at a level of, hey, are they good enough to do that? And you're looking at every aspect of the team with that in mind. And I think Michigan probably wants to be seen the same way. So
they're moving that direction, right?
Let's shift the focus to them. Again, the defending Big Ten champs are off to a great start. We talked a lot about the schedule early on. It wasn't great. Some of it, no faults of their own. What do you think? Biggest strength so far for Jim Harbaugh's team?
I think one of the biggest strengths right now for them is their ability to run the ball whenever they want to run the ball, regardless of who the back is. But when Corum's in there, he's shown us last week he can carry it 30 times and be very productive. I think you look at the quarterback position, when you talk about throwing the ball vertically, I mean, he's completing 80% of his passes, right? I mean, he's getting it done there. This offensive line is playing well. So offensively, I think they're doing the right things. Now, there's some things they need to improve, right? So we're going to switch to that. And I think that's, to me, JJ getting more comfortable or continuing to get comfortable in the read option game, whether he pulls it, takes it, some of those things. Because to me, that's what's going to take Michigan to the next level. When you talked about being excited about JJ being the quarterback, it's his athleticism. We know he can spin it with the best of them. But one of the things that will make a true difference in this offense is his ability to affect defenses, put them in conflict where all of a sudden they need to defend him as a runner.
So Jerry was saying this yesterday. I'm interested in your take on it. He was saying he thinks they're going to be more reticent to do that because of the injury to Cade McNamara. Yeah. And that if you do that, it obviously puts him in harm's way. That is one of the ways that quarterbacks get hurt, and that they can ill afford to have him get hurt.
And I'd agree to a certain extent, but there are going to be times where they're going to say, hey, we're taking Quorum away. You have to do it.
Yeah.
They know, the defense knows that, okay, the situation is well at the quarterback spot, but there are going to have to be some plays in the game where JJ's got to be able to run the ball. Right, and it's got to be a design run where he makes the decision to keep it or pitch it, and he decides to keep it to make it happen. There are going to be some plays where he drops back in the pocket. We've seen him do this, where he'll hold on to it for a while because he's trying to get vertical down the field. When he starts to say, oh, you know what, I think I'm going to keep it, again, that creates considerable amount of pressure on defenses, and it's going to open up that pass game.
Yeah. A couple questionable decisions last week.
Yeah.
Right? And again, you nitpick, right? Because this is the first time we'd seen them against a credible opponent. And I don't know. I'm fascinated to see them against Iowa. I mean, the other thing you would think about is they haven't been in any kind of a hostile environment yet. And this is about as hostile as it gets.
It doesn't get any worse, right?
Right. So first road game of the year coming up tomorrow. A final East team. Where would you go in terms of, first of all, biggest strengths for Penn State?
I think Penn State right now, to me, their biggest strength is on the defensive side, even though they've given up some considerable yardage on that side. To me, when you look at that secondary being able to shut guys down, and they've been able to do it 13 passes defense last week, to me is outstanding. They're just long, athletic on that back end. When they get pressure on the quarterback, those linebackers are very athletic, can run sideline to sideline, so they create some problems for you. So to me, that's a huge strength. And there was a lot of talk of whether, how they were going to adapt to this defense, and they really have done an unbelievable job of doing that. And they actually look faster this year than we've seen them look in previous years as a total defense.
Yeah.
And I think some of that is the players that are out there, and I think some of that is the schemes they happen to be playing right now.
Yeah, Manny Diaz has done a great job. You mentioned, I mean, 41 passes broken up. Not only is it the most in the country, it's 16 more than anyone else.
It's crazy.
It's an absurd number.
Yeah. And a lot of credit has to go, to the back end and with the athleticism and obviously the recruiting and the coaching that's been done back there.
What concerns you?
I think sometimes it's a little bit of a struggle to get the passing game going. Although they can get those explosive runs out of the run game, they have shown that they're going to be consistent with that. And sometimes I think they're going to be in situations where they may not get those explosive big runs. They might not happen. They might not come to the fourth quarter if they come at all. So how's this offense going to function when it's really all on the quarterback? Can they keep him upright, keep him protected so he can throw the ball? And I think so I think some of those things. But again, when we talk about this being an undefeated team, we talk about them taking the next step. I've been on record all week, or even going back to last week, I'm going to keep moving the bar. They're going to prove something this week.
Yep.
I'm going to move the bar again because I think this team is that talented. I think, it's an outstanding coaching staff that they have in place right now. So I never want to see the letdown. And that's another thing that I've been talking about, the letdown, seeing them have that. This is a really good team, so they have to play like it each and every week. So to have a letdown, if they were to have one this week, that's a problem, right? That's a problem. You don't see that from the elite teams, I should say. They might be a little slow. Their opponents may make a play in the first quarter or so, but then all of a sudden they put the foot on the gas and it's taken care of.
I love this schedule for them. Northwestern tomorrow. We'll talk about that game later. I mean, we haven't really seen anything from Northwestern to lead us to believe that they could go into Happy Valley and win. And then you get that bye week to really figure it out going into Michigan.
What's been the other thing that's been interesting? I'm big into watching coaches from the podium and listen. Just their cadence, the way they speak. And this year, Coach Franklin has been so, I would call it reserved. He never got too high, never gets too low. And even going back to the spring when he said, we got to focus on running the football. That's what we need to do. I'm not going to tell you this offensive line is better right now.
Right.
Because I don't know, right? But then after the games, they've been in games where there's always been something he's wanted to focus on. Okay, this is where we need to get better. We won the game, but they did a good job, but we need to get better in some of these areas. So it's really interesting to watch some of the coaches speak immediately after the game. Ryan Day does a great job of it as well, where he shifts, the focus of what's happening to some of the areas where they can improve. So, this is a team that it's really good. They're really good, and they just have to continue to move forward.
They have certainly gotten better running the ball. I mean, now 3 games in a row, 150 or more yards rushing. They'd only gone over 100 6 of the previous 14 games. So we've seen dramatic improvement there. Again, does it carry forward against the absolute elite opponents?
That's what we need to see.
We will see. How about the lone West unbeaten in Minnesota? They lead the nation in yards differential. They are second in the nation in scoring differential. So, again, I do think you question the schedule a little bit, although, I mean, I don't think Michigan State's a bad team.
Right.
They don't seem to be at the level they were a year ago, and they absolutely wiped the field with them. So, all right. I mean, let's start with the strengths, which I think are many. Where do you focus?
Where do you start?
Yeah.
Right? Obviously, they run the ball well. Obviously, offensively, they're doing everything they need to do on that side of the ball. You look at them defensively, they're doing everything they need to on that side of the ball. And I think now we're getting to a point with the Minnesota team is now it becomes about the schedule.
Yeah.
I think because of what they're doing. Yeah, they played some teams that didn't matter, and I was the first one to say, well, you still have to build confidence. You still have to go out and play. Just because you're playing inferior teams, you still should look like you're a dominant team, and that's what they do.
I'll say.
They go out and do exactly what they're supposed to do.
Yes.
And another team that I'm going to continue to move the bar on, right? And I think now is another opportunity for them to really show just how improved and dominant they are. Because you can look at the recruiting rankings for Minnesota and you might not get all excited about it, but what they have done without a doubt is talking about developing not just their starters, but the number 2, number 3. I don't know that we've seen teams that will lose the amount of players that they've lost last year, this year, and continue to play at a high level.
Particularly on the line of scrimmage, right? For developmental programs, the line of scrimmage is the hardest place to just be good year in and year out. And they are a fabulous line of scrimmage team. And they're replacing virtually everyone from last year. And that's what's so remarkable to me.
Yeah, and then, obviously we've seen these guys practice before, but the attention to detail that they show in practice, it shows up in the game. And that's not to take anything away from, the other 13 places because they're paying attention to detail as well. But I just don't know that we see practices like that. I mean, the way they are structured, what they're doing and you see it translate to game day.
Yeah.
So it's everyone's practicing with a purpose, right? That's where you're practicing with a purpose because you want an end result. But you just see that. It just is magnified when you watch this Minnesota team play. Because
any question marks?
I don't know that I have them right now.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think anyone has shown us something that, I'm just not sure.
Yeah, they've handled everything.
They've been able to handle everything to this point. Now, there's going to come a time when they're going to run up against a team that's going to absolutely put some pressure on them and put them in a tight situation. And, then those questions will be answered as well, so we'll know.
Again, I do feel obligated to mention Sagarin's strength of schedule. It's up this week to 177th in the nation, and there are only 131 FBS teams. So, again, you understand that they have played, other than Michigan State, no one, but man, they have been unbelievable.
And the key to that whole thing? Yeah. We wouldn't care if they were 0-3 or 0-4.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
About the schedule.
Look at tomorrow's football slate. We have 3 games early, Illinois and Wisconsin here on the network. Michigan against Iowa and Purdue and Minnesota. Those are also noon Eastern kicks. The 3:30 window features the 3rd-ranked Buckeyes and 11th-ranked Nittany Lions in action. along with Michigan State battling Maryland. Then Indiana and Nebraska finish things off right here on the Big Ten Network in primetime. It is hard not to be intrigued by Illinois and Wisconsin, and really for a couple different reasons. First of all, I think Illinois is really good. I think we're going to learn a lot about them, and we'll get into the X's and O's of that. I think there's, I don't want to say a crisis in Madison, but there is some concern for sure in Madison. So I think kind of in combination with what's going on with the programs, it's interesting. But then you have the Brett Bielema storyline. So let's start there with how you think he has handled it this week and what you think it might look like tomorrow.
Well, I think he's done exactly what he was supposed to do, right? He's trying to shift the focus and make sure the focus is on the players and his team and not on him. But the reality is all the storylines are going to be about Coach Bielema going back to Madison and, you know, a place where he had a tremendous amount of coaching success. You know, the numbers, you know, speak for themselves of what they were able to do. Then obviously his exit from the Badgers to go on to take on to go to Arkansas, where it didn't really work out as well as it needed to. So it'll be interesting to really see the fans' reaction or hear the fans' reaction to him showing back up and leading a different program now. But I think they, at the end of the day, they have to be truly, I think, grateful for what Coach Bielema has been able to do for the program and what he did for them and get them to where they are. And, you know, he's done a tremendous job, but now he's at Illinois now. So.
And doing a really good job there.
Again,
I'm really interested in this game. I mean, we thought Illinois was good when we saw them practice. The Indiana game was a stumble, and give all the credit to the Hoosiers. That was an incredible drive at the end of the game. That being said, I'm not sure we won't look back on that game at the end of the year and think of it as a little bit of a head scratcher, like a little bit surprising that Illinois ended up winning. But if it is going to look that way to us at the end of the year, I think it'll start showing up tomorrow, right? When Illinois goes into Madison and takes on the Badgers. So X and O wise, Illinois feeling good about itself coming off the shutout. Wisconsin just getting hammered by Ohio State. Not that there's great shame in that.
They're Ohio State.
Yes, but what do you see in this game?
You know, I think you'll see an Illinois defense that understands what the power or the strength of the Badgers offense is, and it's running the football. That's really what it is. And I'll even go back to when Lovie Smith was there, when they had a chance to, when they did beat the Badgers, had an unbelievable running game, they tried to take that away. And they're going to load up the box, get as many people in the line of scrimmage to force the game to be won by Graham Mertz. That's where the game, to me, goes again. And, you know, I know we talk a lot about Mertz as far as his abilities, because I think he has a ton of abilities. He just, you know, makes mistakes in inopportune times. But this is going to be another one of those games where it's going to be on his shoulders. And this is a secondary to Illinois that's playing really well. Coach Walters has these guys flying around, and I know we talk a lot about that defense and that it's simple. And it's not that, when I say simple, not that it's not a lot of change and structure to it. It's just the ability for the young people that are playing at it to be able to play at a fast pace. And to me, that's what you need to be able to do. And he's done a great job of doing that. So it's going to come down to Graham Mertz, once again, being able to go out and throw the ball vertically down the field. And one of the things that's just been difficult, and I was going through the packet, you look at the last 22 games, I mean, you just talk about turnovers, 14 in their wins. In those 22 games, the last 22, in those 9 losses, 25.
Yeah.
They're minus 15 in turnover margin.
I know, it's crazy. I mean, it's crazy to think that Wisconsin led the Big Ten in turnovers last year, because it is so uncharacteristic of what we have come to expect from them. And this Illinois, I mean, this defense, so they're pressuring on the second highest percentage of dropbacks of any team in the country. You mentioned the secondary. They're the best pass defense in terms of opponents' completion percentage in the country. It's under 42%, which is a staggering number. Lead the nation in pass efficiency defense. And, oh, by the way, they're really solid against the run. So it just doesn't seem like, at least from what we've seen to this point, like there's an easy way to solve this defense. And as you say, when it gets on Graham Mertz's shoulders, it hasn't always gone well.
Yeah, it hasn't. So, they're going to have to still run the ball, right? And
Yes.
they're going to have to try to spread this defense out. And the way you do it, you go 3 receivers. They'll maybe go 2 tights at times because they've started to do a lot of that. And they'll, extend them away from the line of scrimmage, move them out so that they can get a better idea of what type of coverage is being played. I think you'll see a lot of pre-snap movement as well to give Mertz an opportunity to figure out what the coverage is and where the best matchup is for him to be able to go. But, if Illinois can contain the run, and they're still going to get their yards running the football, that's what they do. But if they can contain the run, not give up the huge plays there, things start to set up well for them. You flip it to the defense. This defense isn't as bad as it showed up to be last week.
Right.
Talking about the Badgers, not at all. I mean, they were playing against a team that really did a great job of mixing and matching their personnel to be able to take advantage of what they do, so well defensively to give their quarterback an opportunity. But Vito, as well as he's played in this offense right now, he's going to have some challenges. You still have to be able to pick up that 3-4 defense and where that extra blitzer is going to be coming from. Ohio State made it look easy last week. It's not that easy.
Illinois is going to start with the run
Yeah.
with Chase Brown, and you think about that game against Ohio State. Last week, they gave up 7 rushes of 10 yards or longer. They gave up 20 all of last year. Yeah. I mean, again, Ohio State's really good, but it does give you a little bit of pause. Let's go to Purdue and Minnesota, another game in the West. Yeah. We've talked about how well Minnesota is playing. We sung their praises a few minutes ago. What's the challenge here for Purdue? Like, what would it have to look like, particularly with the uncertainty surrounding Aiden O'Connell, for them to have a chance to win this game?
I think they have to be able to make plays, particularly, and play the game a lot differently. We watched them the game plan offensively was a lot different than when Aiden's in there, right? You want to get the quarterback out on the perimeter. They ran the ball more. So they're going to have to make plays that way, outside of the pocket. They're going to need a strong run game. I mean that's kind of really what we talk about them not having all the time. They're going to need that to play well defensively. I think they have to turn them over. That's going to be a big part of it, and that secondary has shown the ability to do that, and they can run. But they're going to have to set up this offense, to me, to keep things close and to be able to make plays in the secondary, and then offensively be able to get something out of the passing game.
Think about how good Aiden O'Connell has been. I mean, the last 8 games, he has played 27 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. And this is nothing against Austin Burton, who I think did an admirable job. I mean, the guy had barely played in his time at Purdue. But Jeff Brom did say in his news conference that it changed the way we had to play. That he does not have the ability to go downfield or the confidence to go downfield in quite the same way that Aiden O'Connell does.
Because he hasn't had the reps.
Right.
He hasn't had the reps to be able to do that. Now he's going to get reps, but I think they're going to tailor this game plan, which obviously they should, to the strengths that he has. And to me, that's getting him outside of the pocket. That's trying to be able to run the football a lot better than they have in previous games and years to really be able to make a difference.
Hard for Purdue when you have challenges on both sides of the ball, right? For them, they need to be able to count on their offense, which they have been able to recently, and then you worry about how do we slow Minnesota down defensively. So we'll see. I mean, it feels like O'Connell playing is really the biggest question mark in this game.
Yeah, it really
whether
is.
or not he's ready to go.
Yeah, and if he's not 100%, I don't expect him to be out there. I mean, history has told us when we watch this program perform with their players, particularly their frontline starters, if they're not 100%, they're not going to be out on the field. And I think you have to give the coaching staff a lot of credit not to put their young people in harm's way when they don't believe they're 100%.
Absolutely. No, I mean,
it's hard.
Could not agree more. It's hard to do.
It's hard.
Because you know how good O'Connell is, and you know that you're going to need to be really fortunate to win the game if he's not out there. Obviously, a lot of excitement around the Gophers, and so how about this for fortuitous timing? We will be there tomorrow for Big Ten Tailgate, all Big Ten all morning long. Previews of every conference matchup, tons of fun directly from Minneapolis. Mike Hall, Brock Vereen on campus. Howard, and Jerry, and Nicole Auerbach and I will be here. Big Ten Tailgate presented by Range Rover Sport, 10 a.m. Eastern Time. Our big stat presented by Gatorade. We've talked a lot about Iowa's success against top 5 teams. Amazingly, only Alabama has a better win percentage over the last 14 years in such games than the Hawks do. All but one of those wins for Iowa has come at home. They're 5-1 in that stretch at Kinnick. That, of course, is where they have Michigan tomorrow. So, Howard, what would it take for Iowa to pull off this upset?
I think they have to be able to run the football, which they've shown some signs of being able to do that.
Yes.
I think Petras has to play at a very high level. I think he's probably got to complete somewhere in the neighborhood of 70+% of passes.
Right.
He's not doing that at this particular point. That's where they have to be able to get things done. And it really is, it focuses on the offense, because you have to believe that this Michigan team is going to be able to make plays on offensively, even though this defense is outstanding. I think they're going to be able to move the ball. So I think we have to see Iowa do some things that we haven't really seen them do all year, really consistently, and that's going to be a big part of it. And, you know, Michigan is going to make things very difficult on them, because this is an active front seven. They can get after them. And right now, you talk about a quarterback that's under duress. He's one of the most pressured quarterbacks in all of college football at this particular point. So they've got to shore some things up. And really, you talk about trying to spread people out. They may need to bring people in to make sure that they can protect them, which forces you to have some two players out in routes, which is not necessarily a recipe for success either. So we're going to have to see them do some things that they haven't necessarily done. Along with that, defensively, they have to continue to be what they are, give their offense a short field. Special teams, we know they're going to flip the field in that area when they get opportunities to do that. But offensively, I think this is where the game really lies. They've got to be able to get some points.
And just haven't seen much evidence of that. As you said, they're running the ball a little bit better these last couple of weeks. They have 5 offensive touchdowns, though, in 4 games. So it just doesn't feel like, unless Michigan were to turn it over and find themselves in real short fields defensively, where they had to defend against the Hawks, I don't think we've seen a ton of evidence that Iowa can just march down the field enough to win the game.
Right.
It feels like it is somehow on that defense, but the defense has come through.
They find ways to get things done. And remember, JJ isn't all that experienced of a quarterback.
Right.
So he's going to have a lot of challenge. Coach Parker is going to put him in a lot of tough decisions where he's going to have to make the right play to make things happen for that offense to keep them on the field.
That is the part that I find really intriguing is, again, we're nitpicking on JJ. I think he's a fabulous quarterback. He's probably going to be an All-American someday. But he had a couple plays against Maryland where he got away with things that you may not get away with against Iowa.
And that's
kind
of
bounced his way.
But here's the thing. One of the things about JJ, though, as you watch him, he's going to be in there studying film.
Right.
He knows where he needs to improve. Right. The last thing JJ wants to do is give up this job.
Yeah.
He does not want to relinquish control of his job. Now, it's a little harder now with the injuries to Cade, but this is his team. And I think he's going to be given all the room he needs to grow as a quarterback. And to grow as a quarterback means that you're going to make some mistakes, but know that when you make that mistake, that you're not looking over your shoulder to see who the next guy is to bring in.
Right.
This is a coaching staff that believes in him, team that believes in him, and it's just about him going out and continuing to get better each and every week.
Well, Michigan has not won in Iowa City since 2005. They have lost their last 4 games there. And were Iowa to win tomorrow, you know a lot of the narrative would be about Kinnick Stadium and about how, hey, there's the Kinnick magic again. And home field is certainly part of pulling off an upset. And certainly on Iowa's side, that has been a huge part of the narrative. Tomorrow, our triple header of Big Ten action kicks off with Chase Brown in Illinois against Braylon Allen and Wisconsin. Then C.J. Stroud leading number 3 Ohio State into a clash with Rutgers. And in prime time, it is Indiana squaring off with Nebraska in Lincoln. It all starts with Big Ten Tailgate tomorrow, only on the Big Ten Network and the Fox Sports app. Let's dive into Ohio State and Rutgers. This is obviously a really tough challenge for the Scarlet Knights, a tough challenge for anyone, as we saw from Wisconsin a week ago. What's the approach? What do you do if you're Rutgers to try to keep yourself in this game?
Yeah, I think you have to really try to play this game as close to the vest as you can and really just try to play keep away. You've got to find a way to be able to grind this offense from an offensive standpoint, be able to stay on the football field. You've got to be able to convert. Can't be 3rd and long, has to be 3rd and short so that you can be able to try to keep that team on the sidelines, because that's going to be the most important part. You go back to last year's game, I think Ohio State scored 45 in the first half.
Yeah.
That's not a recipe for success. And I know there's not a lot of ways that you can slow this team down. Going back to what I've said, they can just do things so many different kind of ways offensively that it really puts you in a tough spot. So, they've got to find a way to really be able to bow up, get them in 3rd and long. And when they're in third down situations, they've got to be able to convert to keep them on the sideline.
And again, can't make the mistakes that they made a week ago, which Iowa did such a good job of taking advantage of. It was strange to see how much Rutgers struggled to run the ball last week. Again, Iowa's really good defensively, so maybe it's not that strange, but did throw for 300 yards. Again, I don't know whether you're going to be able to do that against Ohio State, but you have to be a little bit encouraged given some of the offensive issues that they had early in the year.
Well, you have to be encouraged. Being able to throw the ball, you're going to have to be able to do that, and that's just one of the things. But you have the uncertainty at the quarterback spot. They still have to continue to figure that out and go down that path. But, Denzel Burke, to me at Ohio State, he's one of the best corners out there and is not necessarily played the way I think he wants to play. So I think this will be an opportunity for him to have some opportunities to make some plays on the ball.
History not really on Rutgers' side. They've not beaten a ranked opponent in their time in the Big Ten, and we know Ohio State, the longest conference home winning streak in Big Ten history. What about Michigan State and Maryland? How concerned are you about Michigan State coming out of last week?
I'm very concerned, right? And I'm concerned because, of the expectations, right, that have been placed on this team really from what happened last year, and the success that they were able to have. So, like most people, you say, okay, you win this amount of games last year.
Yeah.
You can win one more, two
right,
more
exactly.
than that, right? That's kind of the way fans and we look at things because we feel like this is a program that, without a doubt, is heading in the right direction. But right now, some of the same problems they had last year in the secondary are there. One of the things that they didn't have a problem with last year was at the quarterback spot and taking care of the football and being able to run the ball. And I think not being able to run has more to do with what's happening up front with the offensive line scheme-wise there as opposed to not having Walker back. I think they have two very capable running backs there. They're not Walker, but they're very capable running backs that can make plays. You look at the quarterback, he's under duress. He's throwing the ball to the wrong team way too much and responsible for turnovers. So those are some things that they have to get cleaned up. And, I go back, I think it was 2 years ago, or maybe it was the COVID year, when this team was playing well and they were taking care of the football and they ran the ball, they had no problems.
Right.
But as soon as they started to turn the football over, that's when all the problems started to happen. Whether it was a fumble, interception, whatever it is, you're turning the football over, and you can't do that. And you couple that with, the injuries that they have in the secondary with Henderson, who's their leader.
Right.
That hurts everything. So, I know people are focused on the secondary and what they're not doing pass defense-wise, but they've got to find a way to protect the quarterback. He's got to make better decisions, and they've got to be able to run the ball. Less than 90 yards rushing in the last 2 games.
Yeah.
That's not it.
Have to possess the ball, too. I mean,
Yeah.
only ran 45 plays in that game against Minnesota. That's the fewest for Michigan State this century. Quick thoughts on Maryland. I think it's a huge game for them.
Yeah, it's a great opportunity. You talk about teams, we often talk about teams being able to make that next jump up into really being able to compete for these. This is one of those opportunities that they have. This is a game that's a winnable game for them. Now they need to go out and prove that they can win it. They can't let last week's game and we could have done this, we could have done that. We were right there, we had them. They can't allow that to trickle into this week. And I don't think Coach Loxley will allow that to happen. They've got to stay dialed in and focused because the opportunity for them to take another step with this program is sitting right in front of them.
We were talking in the urban analysis a little bit about Northwestern and the disappointments for them over the last couple weeks. Now they go to Penn State, who's playing really well. What's the formula here for Northwestern? We have certainly seen them win games like this in the past. This just doesn't feel quite like those teams.
Can Hall have a great day rushing the ball?
Right.
Can he have a great day receiving? I mean, that's the type of performance they're going to need. And they're going to need Penn State to turn it over some as well. But to me, where they've shown that they've been able to run it, and he's been able to take care of things on the run in the run game and also the pass game, that's when we've seen this team, be able to make the plays, but we haven't seen them. We've seen them get so far behind defensively in the first half of games that it almost seems like they're slow to make those adjustments that they need to in the first half. Then in the second half, they make some of those adjustments. Offensively, they get better, but you're just wore out trying to claw your way back into the game. And Penn State's not a team that you want to get behind on early because they're just going to unleash those pass rushers on you.
And then last week had the lead in the fourth quarter against a Miami team that was playing with a backup quarterback who was having all kinds of trouble completing passes. And they gave up 132 yards in the fourth quarter, including 122 on the ground against a team they knew couldn't throw the ball.
Right, couldn't throw it. They knew exactly what they were going to do.
Yep.
New game plan. So you have to be able to make those adjustments. The players have to be able to make sure that they're playing sound defense as well. I mean, it's one of those things. They've got to come together and figure it out. And you mentioned it. We've seen Fitz in this position before with teams. Can he create that magic that he's had in the past to turn things around for him?
We will see. It's probably the toughest test of those years, just because it doesn't feel like there's anything they can hang their hat on right now. So we'll see. Later today, we've got action from the best field hockey conference in the nation as the 24th ranked Buckeyes battle Michigan State. Coverage begins today at 4 Eastern on the Big Ten Network and the Fox Sports app. Let's get into our final football game for tomorrow. It is Nebraska and Indiana, a game you can see in primetime here on the Big Ten Network. Nebraska coming off the bye. I'm not sure there was a team that needed a reset more than the Huskers after the game against Oklahoma. Mickey Joseph made some changes. Eric Shenander no longer the defensive coordinator. What are you expecting to see from Nebraska against Indiana?
You want to see some energy from the team, right? And I think this is a team that Mickey Joseph can get fired up and ready to go and go out and play. And I think part of making a lot of those decisions and adjustments to his coaching staff, I believe that the players are going to be energized by some of that. Because, I mean, quite frankly, defensively, I mean, they were bad. I mean, that's being kind.
No, that was a try.
So, they've got to be excited about having another opportunity to go out and play because this is a team that's not void of talent. There's no doubt about that. They have players on this football team. They just need to get in a situation where some good things can happen and they can feel good about some things, and getting off to a fast start would help them do that.
They have lost 7 straight conference games. 8 in a row would tie for the longest streak in the history of Nebraska football. They'll try to turn things around in front of the home crowd. What about Indiana? Kind of a tale of two halves against Cincinnati. You're talking about they dug such a big hole and actually were a lot better defensively in particular in that second half, but they were just so far behind they weren't quite able to get out of it. What do you want to see from them early on against a Nebraska team that figures to be inspired?
And I think that's part of it is they need to be able to withstand this energy that Nebraska is going to come out with. And part of that is being able to stay on the field offensively, being able to make the plays they need to there. Because this is, if they can do that, if they can start fast, if they can play with pace, this is a game that you would think that they should be able to put up points in. But they can't make any turnovers, can't have fumbles, can't have interceptions. They have to play a very clean game offensively and defensively as they move forward in this one.
Yeah, it feels like they were moving quickly against Cincinnati, but not really going anywhere.
Yeah, not going anywhere. and that's a little bit of a problem.
No, ran 104 plays, which averages over 3 yards a play.
Problem.
I'm not sure what that gets you. We will see you tomorrow for Tailgate. Jerry and Nicole
all day
will be here with us, and we will be here all day. I believe Jake Buck coming in tomorrow.
All right, Jay.
We got a big day.